Great to be back with FromTextToSpeech.com for Season 4 of this podcast is uncalled for. Warning, this episode contains strong language or mature themes. Parental discretion is advised.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Alright.
Cool.
Welcome to this podcast is uncalled for.
What's uncalled for about it?
Oh, you can't tell anything in this.
I'm listening.
Oh my god, what are you doing?
I worship Cthulhu just for the free beer.
Eggs are cheap and so are pancakes.
But you didn't even give a chance for a wild card spot!
What are we doing with Tier 1?
And you're like, what did you just say?
Yeah.
The exact sound I make when I'm...
That is uncalled for, Michael.
Well, the name of this podcast is Stuff Uncalled For?
This podcast is uncalled.
Podcast, alright.
Yeah, that was the most ridiculous ending to that game that I've ever seen.
Oh my gosh, I gotta hurry up. Oh my gosh, I gotta hurry up. Oh my gosh, I gotta hurry up.
We're looking at each other in the eye. We're not going to say anything derogatory to the other person. And, of course, neither of us is drunk.
So I don't hear Pope Francis saying that he's a prophet, seer, and revelator.
What planet are these people on?
And good luck. Thank you, back from.
See, this is a disgrace.
How'd that happen?
And it's got Chick-fil-A.
Don't allow you to think.
Hey, we're getting somewhere.
And now, your host for this podcast, Mike Chernevsky.
Fuji!
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to this special Fringe Festival edition of this podcast in Uncalled For. I'm joined this evening by Jessica Whitfield. Jessica, if you could please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, my name is Jessica Whitfield, and I am an actor, a writer, and a standardized patient.
Cool. So let's talk about acting. What are some of the things that you've done that people can find you in?
Yeah, so I do stage, I do commercials, I do film, pretty much anything. I've done some murder mystery plays around town in Kansas City. I've done the Fringe Fest in the past. I've done some short films here in Kansas City. I've done some features. I was in The Brutal Nine, which you can see on Amazon. I play a Russian assassin. And I'm in one that I know they're finishing up soon that's about Audie Murphy. So it's called The Murphy Story. So yeah, and there's lots of short films I'm in. Some of you can find online, just, through YouTube and that kind of thing.
Cool. Now, based on that, I got tons of info from that. Did you have to learn how to speak Russian for that one film? Or?
I did not learn how to speak Russian. No, I speak English, but I did have to learn how to do a Russian accent.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because with my work, I do a lot of screenwriting as well. I like to incorporate different languages into my own work. I personally know Spanish and Japanese. Russian, I have attempted to learn. It's difficult.
Yes, I bet.
Yeah. And in case you're wondering, my surname is Polish, and that's even more difficult of a language to learn. Yeah. Cool. So who are some of the local filmmakers that you have worked with in the...
Yes, so I've worked with Pat Lamb, who has been on your show before.
Very first guest, yes.
I've worked with, and let's see, I have worked with Sam Toddy and his brother. They're the ones that are making the movie about Audie Murphy. I've worked with Patrick Ray. I've worked with Nick Woods this past weekend. He was shooting a short film, so I was on set for his short. So I'm pretty much open to working with anybody. I like working with different people.
All right, great. Yeah, like I said, Pat's the first guest I had on this podcast. Sam and I worked together at JUCO for a while.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah. So we're both in the student media department and everything. I've already talked about this when I had Patrick Poe on for the Fringe portion of the podcast. So do listen to that one as well.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So really cool. I'm proud of Sam for all the work he's been doing.
Yeah, he does nice work. He's good to work with.
Yep. And Patrick Ray, I don't think I actually worked with Patrick, but I do know him. He's a good guy. One of the many filmmakers we have in this town that like to do horror. So.
Yeah, actually the project that I did with him was not a horror. And it was one of my very first film projects ever, because I'm used to doing just stage, and I joined one of those, or somebody added me to one of those actors and filmmakers groups on Facebook. And so I'd see the auditions and I would think, oh my gosh, I want to do that. But I think, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough. And then I saw this one and I had no idea who Patrick Ray was. I knew no film people at all. And I saw this audition. It was for a project called Midget Mafia. And they were looking for people, because my mom is from the East Coast. They were like, we need people who can do an East Coast accent. And like I grew up hearing the accent, people who are women who have like darker hair, who can like pass as Italian. And I was like, well, there's nobody better than this role for me. So I auditioned for it and I got cast. And so this is one you can find on YouTube. It's called Midget Mafia and it's super funny. It's a comedy about a little mafia and the mafia wives.
Cool. Yeah, East Coast. My father's from Pittsburgh. So I have a little bit of that East Coast thing as well, even though I'm Midwestern. In fact, once upon a time, I worked as a security officer, and one of the guests at the hotel is doing security at, which I recently learned was torn down. Said that I came across as someone from the East Coast, which was interesting, I think. So,
yeah, people have trouble placing my accent because my mom is from the East Coast and my dad is from Texas, and they always say, you don't sound like you're from here, but they can never place me.
That's fun. That's funny you mentioned that too, because my mom was from Texas. So.
Oh wow, so we're like opposites.
Yeah. How cool is that? Yeah, dad's from Pittsburgh. Mom grew up in Beaumont, Texas.
Oh wow.
Yeah. In fact, a few years ago, I had an actress, Melody Butler. She's now back in Texas teaching yoga. But I had her audition for and later cast for a project I was doing. And turns out she was from Beaumont as well. So, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
No, my dad's from Dallas and my mom is from Connecticut, the Connecticut area.
Okay. Really cool.
But yeah, I met a lot of cool people doing that first little film project, and I made a lot of great friends. I've made really good friends with Paul Ford, who is the lead actor in that, and he wrote it, and Colleen Kaufman also wrote it. So it's just a lot of fun. And people are so welcoming in the film community here. So it was really nice to make new friends and meet all these cool creative people.
Yeah. I was close to casting Paul for a project, but it just did not work out, unfortunately.
Oh.
Because he wanted to be there for the main part of our filming, but because the ADA is a thing, unfortunately,
right,
it couldn't happen. So, but no, that's okay. If it happens, it happens. If not, don't worry about it.
That's true.
Right. So really, really cool. Some of the filmmakers I've had the pleasure of working with, of course, unfortunately, the late Dave Barry, Brian Boy is another one I've worked with. Brian I had on last year's Fringe program. Yeah.
Nice.
and a handful of others at Kindleson, Paul Campbell, and yeah, all good guys to work with, I think. So, yeah. Would you say it's an easy transition going from theater to film and video?
It's very different. They're two completely different things. I think it's probably easier to go from stage to theater because with theater, you don't get a second take. You've got to learn this full length play. You got to know it backwards and forwards because once you're on stage, there's nobody to save you. There's nobody to say, cut, let's do it again. You got to know it inside and out. With film, you at least, if you do mess up, you get that second chance to get another take. Usually there's not as many lines to learn in film because it's more action, less dialogue, where stage is pretty much all dialogue. But with stage, you have to be really big because you're playing to these big theaters and the people in the back of the house have to see you. And my cat's coming to say hello.
Hey, kitty.
And for film, you've got to bring it down. And so that's something that I had to learn. So I started taking some classes here in town to help me make that transition, which helped a lot because I realized, oh my gosh, I'm being really big and I'm talking louder than anybody else here. So I just had to learn to bring it down some. But if you're going from film to theater, you got to do the opposite. You have to be really big. And a lot of people have problems with that. So
do you study under Andy Garrison, since you mentioned?
I have. Yeah, that was the first person that I went to because he offers that acting for the camera class. And he kept saying, you're making faces. So, but he lets you look at the footage in his class after you do a scene. So that's really helpful to see, oh yeah, I am making these really big faces. I gotta bring that down. And I've also worked with Heather Laird. She does on-camera acting workshop. And I've taken Richard Allen Nichols' class, which his class isn't necessarily for the camera. It's more just regular acting, but he's worked with Uta Hagen, so he's so knowledgeable and can help you with like any type of acting.
Yeah, Andy's a good guy. He's been I know him through IFC, and I do highly recommend him for any actors who happen to be watching or listening to this. So, yeah.
Yes, I recommend any of those three instructors. They're all great.
Yeah. Let's go over to screenwriting for a little bit, because you mentioned you do screenwriting. In fact, I heard your screenwriting presentation to the IFC about a month ago.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah, so I actually, I started out as a playwright. So I've been writing plays since high school, and I did it in college and had several of my short plays produced in college, and have had some done here in town, like at the Just Off Broadway Theater and City Theater of Independence and the Barn Players. And I kind of decided that I wanted to adapt some of those short plays into short screenplays. And it's very similar to making the transition from stage acting to film acting. It's less dialogue, more action. With film, you have the opportunities to show things or do these cut-ins that you can't see on the stage. So you can tell a story without having to explain like you would on a stage. But yeah, I find that, and some of my stuff has been produced through IFCKC. I have other things that have not been produced yet, but I find that writing is, it's therapeutic. Like, it's this great way to express yourself. You don't need anybody else to there with you. You can do it by yourself at any time, at any place. So I kind of find that I'm kind of half introverted, half extroverted. So when I'm feeling extroverted, I can do these acting projects. When I'm feeling introverted, I can just stay home, write a script by myself. And it's a great way to kind of tell your own story, because you should tell stories that mean something to you or that you're familiar with. Write what you know. If you are going to write something that you don't know, you need to do a lot of research to make sure that you're being authentic, because there's people out there that do have those experiences that are going to watch and know that this is not authentic because you didn't do the research.
True. That as a screenwriter myself, I can attest to all that. So yeah, pretty much write my own stuff, everything. In fact, that's what helped get me into a film, was to stay off boredom. Back in high school, I would write little shorts and everything. So
cool.
Yeah. Then had to learn how to shoot those shorts, and that's how it is. In fact, and I had this discussion with Patrick Poe as well. If you are in the independent filmmaker scene, you kind of have to be a jack of all trades. You gotta know how to write, you gotta know how to shoot, you gotta know how to edit, and on occasion act. So, yeah,
that's very true. Yes.
Is there a particular genre that you like writing?
Yeah, so I think my strength is comedy. I really like writing comedy and making people laugh. I'm trying to get better at drama. And I also like dark comedy. So a project that I've been working on, doing a lot of rewrites on, it's a project called Prepper. And it won the Midwest Heartland Award with Casey Whift last year at with Casey Film Fest. And it's partly about my life, and because my ex was a prepper. So it's this couple who their life has been consumed by this need to prep for the end of the world. And so yeah, not all of it's been dramatized, so not all of it's completely true. But yeah, it was very therapeutic to write it and tell my story. And I have plans to get it produced and act in it as well. So I'm excited to tell my story.
Awesome. Now, for our audience who are listening or watching, they have no idea what WIFT is. It's the Women in Film and Television Group.
Yes.
One of at least 3 or 4 different film groups in the Kansas City area. So, yeah, because I mean, you have the WIFT, you have IFC, you have KC Video Corps, and several other, a couple of others, I think. So, yeah.
KC Screenwriters.
Screenwriters too, yeah. So, and screenwriters, always meet on the same night as IFC, so pick one or the other, right? Yeah.
I know. You do. You have to choose. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're great groups to be a part of. You can go to any of those meetings for free. So it's a great way to, if you're new, just starting out, getting to know people and network. And yeah, they're all really nice and welcoming.
Absolutely. And I should clarify as well that the Video Core group, that's more my side, the more technical side of things. So we're talking mostly editors and shooters and that ilk. So, and tons of seminars, mostly on Adobe Premiere and After Effects and all things Adobe.
Nice.
Yeah. So, cool. What was that last thing you said when you're listing your job titles? I heard us acting and screenwriting. There was a third thing.
Oh, yes. Yes, so I have an unusual day job. It's called standardized patient work, and a lot of people don't know what that is. It's not really referenced in any pop culture anywhere, except it was on one episode of Seinfeld once, where Kramer becomes a standardized patient. And so what it is, it's when, and it is a newer profession, they didn't always have it around, but med schools and nursing schools need people to portray patients. So they hire a lot of actors to do this, people that are able to memorize a lot of information. And it's a lot of fun. Sometimes you're just doing a medical thing where, oh my gosh, I have a cough today. But sometimes you have to be a difficult patient who's angry about something or sad, or the student has to deliver bad news to them, like they have cancer or something horrible. And so they need actors to portray those emotions realistically. So when these doctors and nurses go out into the real world, they're prepared for the real life patients. So it's fun to help the medical students, and I'm learning a lot of medical stuff, which is cool.
That is interesting. I never heard that job before, so interesting. So I'm guessing they start you off small, like, oh, I have a really bad cough, or my arm hurts, or
yes, exactly. Yeah, and then you have to memorize the case facts. So you have to memorize this characters, medications, their allergies, their family history. So it's a lot to memorize, but you kind of get used to it. And then it helps if you have some improv experience, because sometimes the students will ask you something that's not on this list that you've memorized. So you've got to be able to make something up that's appropriate for the occasion.
All right. Cool. Yeah, I think that's another great point. Improv, I'd say that's, if you're working on one of my films, expects to be doing improv, and I do a lot of
nice.
And I do a lot of drama as well, although it tends to be more comedic drama when it's all said and done. Certainly improv helps a lot. I think it's a good way for the actors to get a little more in depth with their characters, and if they can think of something that I hadn't in my writing, then hey, have at it.
I like that. I like when directors let you do some improv, because it can be really challenging if you've got to just stick to this script and maybe it doesn't sound natural, coming out of your voice, and just being able to use your own words sometimes can really help you to discover that character. I know a lot of actors are afraid of improv and afraid to go off that script, but I love it. And yeah, even if you are sticking to the script, even just playing some kind of improv game where you're acting in character before shooting or before going on stage, I find can be really helpful as well.
Yeah, I have also partaken in an improv group once upon a time. Right, just before I joined the IFC, I was part of an improv group.
I was too.
Yeah. It's a small little group at Johnson County Community College. Had one of my other members there early in this podcast, post Pats, but still pretty early. And that was a little fun. That was very fun. We did the alphabets improv game. So so I assume you're familiar with that game.
The group that I was a part of, we mostly did long form improv, but every now and then we would do some short form games and things, which were fun. My group, it's not around anymore, but it was called Wit Pending, and we did shows at the Westport Coffee House sometimes.
All right, cool. Yeah, the IFC used to meet at the Westport Coffee House.
Yes.
I don't know if you knew that, but those are the days. That's a nice little theater they have.
It is.
So long form, that would be games like the Armando game, or
I'm not sure what the Armando game is. I don't know if we had a name for what we did, but we had a couple different ones. We would do one where you would get a suggestion from the audience of who this first character is, and a prop, that kind of things. So he or she would come out, say, I'm this character that you suggested, and then that person would announce the next character, and so one of the actors would come out, and you would have to become that character that he or she just described, and then it would continue. Well, this is my best friend so and so, and they're this. And we did another one where one person was the interviewer, and we each and we had to pick a body part and we would walk around the room, and you would lead with a certain body part, like an elbow or something, and then you had to come up with a story of like, why does this person walk with their elbow like this? And then we would, of course, interact with each other, and usually there was arguments amongst the characters, so it was a lot of fun.
Really cool.
And I also did in college, we did a commedia dell'arte, which is a lot of fun, which is the original Italian improv. But it is, a lot of people think that improv is, you have to think of it on the spot, but that's not always the case. There's all these different types of improv that people don't know about. And with commedia dell'arte, you take on these stock characters. You can look it up online if you don't know. The Harlequin is the most famous one, of course. So there's all these different stock characters. And so each person in the group takes on a stock character, and you develop your characters and decide, what your relationship with this person and this person. And then when you perform it on the stage, you kind of have an idea of where you're going to go with it, but you're making up the lines and the dialogue as you go.
Really cool. Yeah, one of these days, someone's going to do that game and say, oh, here's my friend Ricky the Red Shirts, and he's famous for dying.
Yes. A lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, my favorite genres to work with, it's an expensive genre, but I still like working with it because it's so much fun to work with, is science fiction.
Nice.
Yeah. And one of the more, by recent, I mean a few years ago, one of my projects is, in fact, a partially completed sci-fi cyberpunk cop show. So,
wow. Yeah. A lot of stuff going on in that one.
Oh yeah. Speaking had some of the actors speaking a made-up language. I had some people speaking Russian. I had people speaking Japanese and all sorts of stuff. And
you're very demanding. Very challenging.
Yeah. I wound up having to act in it too a couple times, playing a ninja.
Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, sci-fi, definitely a genre I like. I've admitted on this podcast to being a Trekkie, and it's the Red Shirts comments, of course, because that's where it's from. It's from the original Star Trek series. The security officer wearing red, he's going to die. And I'm also a big fan of South Park, and you watch that show knowing that poor Kenny, he's going to die. More often than not, he's going to die.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy watching science fiction. I don't write it a lot. I've written some superhero stuff, if you consider that sci-fi.
Not really.
No. Okay. Never mind then.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I like period pieces, and that's one of my favorites. And then comedy, dark comedy, drama.
I know a lot of British comedy. They like doing period stuff.
Yes, I love it. I love watching those.
I think one of the earliest Monty Python, my earliest memory of Monty Python, for example, was some sort of medieval porn shop or something. Yeah. And this is before I found out about the Spam sketch and the dead parrots and all that. I've recently found my way to Blackadder. Blackadder the Third, the chicken impression scene. Very funny. Yeah. So yeah. There's plenty of room in comedy and period pieces, and heck, you can find comedy in science fiction too. You know,
And sometimes you get period films in sci-fi, like Cloud Atlas or films like that.
Yeah. True. Again, going back to Star Trek for a second, example of comedy within Star Trek is the whole Trouble with Tribbles, for example. That's explicitly a comedy episode. You know,
Yeah, I like it when they add comedy to things like that, because if it's serious all the time, then it kind of gets boring. So yeah, I like it when, and I think it's kind of a good way to write too, because I'll write something just getting the plot out on the page, and then when you go back and do your rewrite, you can add those little jokes and things to add the comedy to it.
Yeah, as Brian likes to point out during our interview, I like putting really inside jokes into stuff. So yeah, like one, like a good example, this is a real world example too. February 14, we all know what that day is. I call it Saint Marcelletta's Day. That's a very inside joke if you listen to a certain sports commentators radio show. So Anne Marcelletta, for those not familiar, he played safety mostly with St. Louis, but played in Washington for a little bit. And when he was in Washington, he got blamed for the team not doing well. So, but listeners of this particular radio show start blaming him for literally everything. Yeah, he's blamed for the greenhouse effect, the federal deficit, Sanjaya remaining on American Isle, long lines at the McDonald's, and some girl losing her homework, among others. And Valentine's Day is a day I absolutely abhor. So I just blame that whole holiday on Adam Archuleta. So that's an example of one of those inside jokes that I like to do in my stuff. So.
Yeah, I like it when scripts have references to things that maybe not everybody's going to get, but if you do get it, you feel like you're on the in crowd and you're like, yeah, I know what that's from, and it's funny and you get to laugh with it. And I like scripts that have, even if it's not like in the dialogue, there might be a poster or something in the background that you might not notice the first time you watch the film, but when you watch it the second time, you're like, oh wait, I get it. Yeah, that's referencing this. So yeah, I love it when there's those little details.
Yeah. That the poster behind me is a good example. That everything on this poster relates to the podcast in some way, shape, or form.
Cool.
But there's an inside joke. You have to know Japanese comedy to get this one. The one, Konyaga Yamada.
I don't get it.
Okay, so here's another joke I can explain. The one of the Japanese comedy shows I like watching on occasion is called Downtown no Gaki no Tsukaya Arahende. And they're most famous for 24-hour Batsu games. Batsu meaning
wow, that's long.
So yeah, so long that they'll have to sleep during the thing. And when they're trying to sleep, there's a guy going on and yelling exactly that. Konyaga Yamada. Konyaga Yamada. Trying to get these guys to laugh. And they're not supposed to laugh during this whole 24-hour period.
That sounds like another improv game.
It does kind of, yeah. So yeah, that is, do suggest everyone check out. You can go YouTube Gaki no Tsukai or just Batsu game. That's probably easier than spelling Gaki no Tsukai. Yeah. Still got about at least 15 minutes, and we need to pad out here for Fringe. So What are some of the things that influenced you?
Things that have influenced me. So as far as screenwriting goes, my favorite screenwriter filmmaker is Todd Solondz. And I saw Welcome to the Dollhouse when I was in high school, and me and a couple of my girlfriends in high school, we watched it over and over again. For those who aren't familiar with it, it's a coming of age dark comedy, and it's about this girl. Her name is Dawn Wiener, and she just has trouble fitting in. It's a dark comedy, so there is a lot of humor to it, if you're not easily offended. But when we watched this film, because this is at a time when there was all these other movies out like American Pie and Varsity Blues that were, just about these guys trying to go to prom and play football, that stuff, and stuff that like we didn't relate to. And so this was the movie that we're like, okay, being kids who grew up in the city, we're like, okay, this is something, because I'm not familiar with the suburban life growing up. And when I went to college in Iowa, and when I was there, I met all these girls that did grow up that way. And I'm like, wait, that's real? This is like American Pie, that's real? So yeah, just seeing this show, our movie Welcome to the Dollhouse, was something that we really related to. Like, yeah, this is what life is like. The first scene, she's goes into the cafeteria at school, and like no one wants to sit with her, and so she gets bullied, and so she's kind of an underdog, and we just loved it. And so I really like his writing, because he does a lot of it's serious, but there's a lot of comedy to it, and it's realistic dialogue as well. So he's my favorite screenwriter. And Wiener Dog was his most recent one. He also made Happiness. And let's see, who else do I like? I like Britt Marling, who she's on the Netflix series, The OA. And she also wrote the films Another Earth and The Sound of My Voice. And she's very beautiful, very talented. And she started writing these things because the roles that she was being offered as an actor were, the dumb blonde and kind of these things that weren't really challenging, nothing that she wanted to do. So she started writing for herself. And Another Earth and The Sound of My Voice, there were these really unusual stories. Another Earth is kind of a sci-fi one, so you might like it. It's about the Earth, but then there's a second Earth, and they're coming together. And so Britt Marling has another her that's on this other Earth, but they have lived these entirely different lives, kind of like another dimension.
Yeah, like parallel universes. That's
exactly.
That's a common sci-fi trope. Absolutely.
Yes. And so yeah, I really admire her. That's like what I want to be. I want to be someone that acts but writes as well. And the OA, if you haven't seen it on Netflix, it's so good. And it's another one that's kind of like there's this parallel universe, but she finds a way to jump. They call it jumping into that other universe. But in this, you're in the body, but her mind remembers her life from the other universe. So, and it's really cool and really unusual.
Cool. Yeah, you mentioned Varsity Blues. That's actually a movie I can kind of relate to because I played high school football.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Wide receiver, defensive back for Shine Mission West.
Nice.
Back in 1996, so over 20 years ago. So, yeah. I have a busted left knee because of it. And,
oh no.
Yeah. Well, Varsity Blues is kind of on the mark in that's how football players and particular teammates interact with one another. But it's also misses the mark in that we weren't going out getting drunk on game nights.
Gotcha.
And we weren't going to strip clubs.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. And so some things they got around the money, some not so much. So,
good to know.
Mm-hmm. And what about acting? Are there any actors you look up to, shall I say?
Yeah, so I mentioned Britt Marling. I like Melissa McCarthy.
Okay.
Yeah, I love that. And Tiffany Haddish. I love, you can tell that both of them, they're creating these characters and they're bringing things that are not necessarily on the script. Like you can say a line just like this, or you can say a line like this, you know, just bringing your own spin to it. And so, yeah, I admire both of them and think that they're funny, but they can also be really serious as well. So yeah, a couple of really talented ladies.
Cool. Yeah. Filmmaker wise, I'd say Kevin Smith is probably my biggest influence.
Cool.
Which is funny. Do you know Sav Rogers by any chance? Yeah. I want to say she, but she had a sex change and is now a he.
Yes.
And did a documentary on Kevin Smith and his work, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I heard about that. Chasing Amy.
Yeah, Chasing Amy, I think is the name of the doc. Yeah. So of course reference to Chasing Amy, which a lot of people would argue is probably his best of the Venus Universe films. I argue it's Clerks, which is a very dialogue heavy film, which it's still impressive to me how much money he spent to make that film. 27 grand as opposed to millions. Right. And he was actually working at that convenience store when he made that movie, and he could only really shoot there at nights when the store was closed. Everything, and that's where they got the idea that the shutters needed to remain closed, and the lock was jammed with bubble gum.
Yeah, I like those Kevin Smith movies from the 90s. Those are other ones that we watched a lot in high school. Chasing Amy, Mallrats.
Dogma.
Yes.
Yep. Yep. And in terms of actors, well, again, I went to Shawnee Mission West, and we have a couple of very famous actor alumni, one of whom I allegedly was at West with at the same time.
Oh, who's that?
Jason Sudeikis.
Oh, cool. Nice.
Yeah, his senior year would have been my freshman year.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and West is a pretty big school, so you can't know everybody.
True.
Heck, there are still people in my graduating class I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other really famous West Viking would be one Paul Rudd.
Cool.
He was there way before I was, but about 10 years, I want to say. So, yeah.
He looks so young, though.
Yeah.
Well, those are a couple of cool guys to have as your fellow alumni.
Yeah.
Even if you didn't know them.
Absolutely. And then of course college. Well, JUCO. I'm struggling to think of any actors that went to JUCO, but UMKC has a really good acting program. A lot.
Yes.
Yeah. I was fortunate enough to work with some of those actors and everything on some of my films. And yeah, and don't tell anybody this, I've shot on the campus too. So, yeah. Guerrilla filmmaking ain't nothing like it.
It's between you and me.
You, me, and anyone who's watching and listening.
That's right.
But you know, people use college campuses all the time for film projects. You know, so.
Keep it on the down low, guys.
Yeah, keep it on the down low and don't get caught like I stupidly got caught the one time.
Oh no.
Yeah, so I was caught at JUCO shooting at one time. They only caught him because one of the actors was playing a ninja character. Yeah, security shows up. Yeah, we saw this guy wearing a hood and yeah, okay, we're just doing it. Do you have permission to shoot here? No. Okay, you need to leave now. Okay, we'll leave. So, then that's it. That's all. Of course, I mentioned earlier I did work as a security officer for a couple of years out of college and know how all that works and everything. So I'm not going to argue. I'm definitely not going to argue with the security officer or a policeman for that matter.
Good plan. Good plan.
So because I know what they have to go through. You know? Yeah.
So did you get to finish your film with the ninja?
That was part of the web series that I talked about.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. In fact, that's particular scene is a part of the what was finished. So yeah. All right. Well, we're coming up on almost time to wrap things up. So do you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I would just say that if you want to do something artistic, like just go for it. Because you might regret it if you don't, and you don't have to have a lot of money to make a film. You know, you can use your phone. This past weekend, a friend of mine, we just got together and we did a scene together, and she recorded it on her phone and edited it together. So anybody can do it. Anybody can be a filmmaker now. You don't have to have fancy equipment. And yeah, you don't have to be cast in something to practice your acting skills. You know, you can take these acting classes, but if you can't afford an acting class, like I make monologues at home, just using a ring light and my phone, and then put them up on YouTube. Sometimes they're from plays, sometimes I write my own material. So yeah, you can do it by yourself. You can get a friend and do a scene. So there's all kinds of ways you can be creative. You don't have to be a millionaire. So just do it.
Excellent advice. Just go out there and do it. If you have a smartphone, use it. If you have an iPad, iPod, whatever, they have cameras, use them. Same place for music, you know, just use your phone, record music. And editing software, there are tons of editing softwares out there that you can get for free or for incredibly cheap. Adobe's not one of them. Adobe's very expensive. But you get what you pay for with that thing, with all that. So just go out there and create. So that's a good message. All right. Well, thanks for being on the podcast. And hopefully when things get a little more back to normal, we'll be up again and probably work on something together.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
That'd be great. Yeah. Thanks. And everyone at home, thank you for listening or watching. If you happen to be watching during Fringe, keep supporting the podcast and keep supporting Fringe. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
These are all the things I want. Soft Pacific echoes. I'll go searching in the evening for that calm, for that home. The Yamanote don't end. Bide your time for another one. A typhoon hung over
This podcast is Uncalled For is hosted, produced and edited by Mike Chernevsky. Opening music is Fantasia Fantasia by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. Outro music for every episode of the 2021 Kansas City Fringe Festival program is Ibiki Gaki Koeru Pacific Echoes by Pierce Murphy, licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution license. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast through your favorite podcasting platform. Like our Facebook page at facebook.com/uncalledforpodcast, and check out our blog with show notes at uncalledfor.home.blog. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you next time.